be, Mad. It's turning out to be where
I've never been to Burning Man.
You haven't? I haven't been to the Burning Man. And I doubt Ken has either. Hush, Coco. Well, anyway, there are groups getting together with different groups that write songs. And I believe there's an Area 51 band, if I'm not mistaken. But some of the bands have been getting some hype out of this in the music industry. Interesting enough. Where is Area 51? There's books on Barnes & Noble about Area 51, classified U.S. military base situated in Groom Lake. But there's also, Mad, you don't have anything on bands, do you, or music? Did you look up anything about the bands?
No,
because that was popping up.
There's a couple of actors involved in it. I know one of the actors from the game Thrones is involved in it. I really hadn't had a chance to look that deeply into it. Personally, I think it's a psyop. I think they want everybody keeping an eye on what's going on out there instead of what's going on in our government.
Well, it's sure taking on a life all its own. Yeah, to get Area 51 out there. I guess they're trying to help tourism. I don't know what. It's supposed to be a gag on Facebook, Storm Area 51 by this Maddie Roberts. However, it's received so much media attention now that the media is getting involved, and so are event organizers and bands to see what they can make of this on September 20th.
If they can get 2 million people worried about that instead of worrying about, some of the things that are going on in Washington and New York City right now,
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's a sleight of hand in the media.
Right.
Because
we
media
should be paying more attention to the stuff that really makes a difference. I mean, disclosure is happening slowly, but it is happening. And we all know that. We've seen it. 30 years ago, you'd be called a nut if you said you'd seen a UFO. Today, nobody pays much attention to it.
Yeah, my daughter came in just passing through saying it's a big deal. Well, I don't keep up with politics. Like when I was writing as a reporter weekly, I did keep up with that, but that was during the younger Bush days. Before that, presidency, and then in the Navy. I was traveling the world and too involved in what all was going on and how we could get stuff import and export, and the world was just knocking me off as fast as I could make anything in America and all the other countries. So I wasn't a happy camper as a trying to make things, and just everybody knocked it off quicker than I could in China and Korea and Philippines, everywhere. It's just the way the world is. If they think they can make $1 off of it. But you're saying in Washington we got so much going on. Now, what are you referring to, like Trump and Russia or Republican senators? Or I don't know who else.
The main thing I think it is the pedophile stuff that's going on. I think they want people paying more attention to what, the Area 51 deal, because everybody knows that it's already what it is. And even if there was alien stuff there at one time, it's probably been moved in the last 50 years.
Well, yeah, Tom and I worked over in a mountain.
Right, and what's there is top secret aircraft that they're working on and stuff, stuff like that, and bombs, and that has to do with national security. And once you start messing with national security, the military don't play around.
Well, they've got plenty of videos out, folks, if you want to see what's going on. We're sort of interested in it because just the word Area 51, ETs and UFOs, and that's our trade association of groups of authors and speakers and radio hosts, and people like to talk about things that are mysteries or unexplained. And we can't even explain ourselves, much less aliens, but we're taking the higher ground saying that alien civilizations exist, and basically we are they. They've been coming and going. Now, we can talk about this because hopefully someday we're going to have an event. But just so you know, at this day and time, now this is the 50th anniversary, isn't it, Ahmad? And Ken, when we walked on the moon, we need to flip over to that, I guess. But we'll come back to this Area 51 and talk about it some more. But was it July 19th or July 20th when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong walked? Was it July 19th?
I think it was
anybody
the 20th.
help me? Okay, because I know I got in trouble earlier about not getting the date right. Ken, do you have the day that man walked on the moon? Was it July 19th or was it July 20th? I guess I got to look it up. I had that pulled up about Buzz Aldrin. Now, we know Neil Armstrong has passed. He was a very strong, he'll always be famous for walking on the moon. But I'll pull up Neil Armstrong. Gosh, he looked so different when he was young. He died August 25th, 2012 in Cincinnati. Hard to believe, Neil Armstrong. Ken, let's get into a little bit of history.
Okay.
50th anniversary. When do you know when man walked? Okay.
I've always said it was on the 20th, and I don't have anything in front of me right now, but it's always been the 20th, and the information
all right,
that
so
I
July
remember.
20th.
Yeah, now somebody can jump in and say that, oh, well, you know, the time from getting to the Earth to the moon and then from the moon back to the Earth, you're probably going to hit both the 19th and the 20th, you know, because it was a 3-day event. So I'm going to stick with the 20th until somebody can shoot me down on that one.
All right. Well, he was a graduate of Purdue, Neil Armstrong. He was, we'll just get into a little history here, folks, being that Ken R. Johnston is a space advocate, a big NASA ambassador for the solar ambassador, we call him, for our group, our club, ACO Club. I get to be the Cosmos ambassador, starting with Mad with the Cosmos Connection was the name of my story, and we've got Cosmos Radios, plural. But Neil Alden Armstrong, born August 5th, 1930, he died August 25th, 2012, was an American astronaut and aeronautical engineer. He was the first person to walk on the moon. Now, why doesn't it tell me when? It's not in his bio here. He is a naval aviator and test pilot, and I didn't know that, but a university professor, graduate of Purdue University. So he did study aeronautical engineering, and he was in the U.S. Navy, paid for by the Holloway Plan. He became a midshipman in 1949 and a Navy aviator the following year, and he actually saw action in the Korean War flying a Grumman F-9F Panther, for all you air enthusiast, or I don't know what you call it these days, aircraft enthusiast. We used to say airplanes. I don't know, Ken. What do your kids call it? Was it Civil Air Patrol? Or is it still jet? We say jet maybe more than we do aircraft. What do we say?
It was July 20th.
We call them aircraft now. So that way that takes in both everything from helicopters to gliders to jets and to piston-driven power, aircraft. So no, it's aircraft. And of course, then you've got the other ones that are the ones that we want to talk about sometimes in the UFOs, the unidentified flying objects. So, we've got a good connection going there. Let's stick with aircraft for the earthbound ones. That works for me.
Aircraft. All right. And Amanda just said it was July 20th, 1969, when Armstrong, the Apollo 11 lunar module, took off with Buzz Aldrin. And it was actually, I guess, a big thing about who was going to step out first. A flip of the coin got to be Neil Alden Armstrong. And Neil Armstrong.
That's not quite true. That's not quite true. The reason why Neil Armstrong, ordinarily, as most Navy officers will tell you, the captain or the commander of a ship, he's the last one to leave the ship in the event of an emergency. And initially in the Apollo, the plan was that the commander would be the first one to go in. But inside the lunar module, the hatch, the door, is underneath the instrument panels and goes out on a small little porch and then down the ladder onto the lunar surface. Well, the door opens to the inside. And when you open the door to the inside of the lunar module, it blocks the lunar module pilot, in this case Buzz Aldrin, and he could not get out first and let. So what happened then? Neil Armstrong was the first one to go down. So he wasn't the last person to leave the ship, so to speak. He was actually the first person to step foot off of the landing pads onto the lunar surface. And then, of course, Buzz was able to close the door and then step over to the lunar module pilot, the commander, CDR, command pilot, hit the door and then close it back, move it back over to his side so then he could get down on his knees and he could crawl out. So that was the reason why Neil was the first one to step foot on the moon. In all reality, Buzz would have been the first one if the doors had swung the other direction. So that's kind of hard to take for some people to realize. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we do need to get the proper way to say it for the historians and those that are out there that really do pay attention to the details. So Buzz Aldrin was one of the first people to land on the moon. They spent 8 days, 14 hours, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds in space. At least that's what it says here, according to Neil Armstrong's Wikipedia page. Now, he said that's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. Along with Collins and Aldrin, Armstrong was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Richard Nixon, and then President Jimmy Carter presented Armstrong with a Congressional Space Medal of Honor in '78, and Armstrong and his former crewmates received a Congressional Gold Medal in 2009. But he resigned from NASA in '71 and taught at the Department of Aerospace Engineering at the University of Cincinnati until '79, and then he served on the Apollo 13 accident investigation on the Rogers Commission with investigated Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Now, let me go back up a little bit, back up to the top, because I saw that gentleman's name I never can remember until today. It was Collins. And what was his first name? But he's starting to finally be recognized. He was the one that stayed in orbited around the, stayed on the, I guess, the module to get the two guys back home. Collins. What's his first name?
Yeah.
Michael.
That was Michael. Michael Collins. Michael Collins, and he was what would be the CDR, the command module pilot. Neil Armstrong was considered the commander of the whole mission, and then Buzz Aldrin, of course, was the lunar module pilot. So, yeah, that's all thing. And you know that was kind of hard for some of the people. For a little while when they got back, such as I know Buzz had a hard time because, you know, let's face it, ordinarily, according to naval and aviation things, the commander's the last one to leave the spacecraft. But Buzz had to go wait and be the last, just simply because the way the door was designed on the lunar module. And then, of course, they got over that, and Neil went back to work at the university as a professor, and Buzz continued on and finally got things all squared away, and then got back involved in making the big push to get America to be the first ones to go and land on Mars. In fact, he's got a big program going right now to do people can join in a, what do they call that, a fictitious, but they think it looks just like you're on Mars yourself. So we're making progress and heading in the right direction, and Buzz is involved in every bit of that. And like I told you earlier, I have probably close to 1,000 hours inside the lunar module with Buzz. Well, probably less than that, but I did get the chance to help train all of the lunar-bound astronauts that had to understand and know how to fly the lunar module. And even Michael Collins also had to know if he had to, while they were still in orbit or on transition from the Earth to the Moon or the Moon back to the Earth, he would have had to understand how the instrument panels and all the instruments and things work inside the lunar module as well as the command module, so that he could switch over. But that's those things have happened. It's this now the 50th year anniversary of the first step forward on the lunar surface. I think people should give Buzz as much credit for stepping on the moon as they did Neil, because they were the team and was part of the team that first stepped off of the lunar module onto the lunar surface. So he's got my respect.
Well, what about Michael Collins? Because I didn't. This sounds terrible, folks, because I lived it. I was born in '51 when they were going through Pensacola, right here where I live, the naval flight training. But Michael Collins it looks like he was an American astronaut and test pilot too. But he was